So with Nobody's Patient, we got the opportunity through the National MatX Challenge Fund, the NHS England Challenge Fund, to apply for further funding to take some certain issues and explore them in more detail. Florence came up with the first two categories, which was basically families with newborn babies in neonatal units or paediatric units, and the second one, women who become severely ill during pregnancy. And she was aware as an obstetrician of just how often people like that can fall between gaps in services, whether it's gynecology and maternity, inconsistencies in terms of how many weeks pregnant you are, and you end up with possibly a different experience, very, very different experience, different parts of the country, even different hospitals. And then I was very proud really to suggest to Flo and to add this third category, women who miscarry in the second trimester. And the reason I did that was because of my knowledge of Catherine and the Pinks and Blues here in the West Midlands, it's in Birmingham, and the fantastic support she was offering, and how those women fall through very specific gaps. And I promised Catherine that if ever I got a chance to do something about it through Whose Shoes, I would do. And within 2 weeks, we got this chance through the Challenge Fund to apply for money, and we were successful. So would you like to come and tell us more, Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine, and I set up the Pinks and Blues in response to my own experiences of having 3 second trimester losses and 3 first trimester losses, and not feeling that I fitted in anywhere. Sometimes my care with the second trimester losses was on the gynae ward, sometimes it was on the delivery suite. There didn't seem to be any consistency to how people supported me. Through my experiences, I now have lived experience of post-traumatic stress, birth trauma and perinatal mental health, ill health, because nobody quite knew how to support me. Everybody kept passing me to somebody else. I was somebody else's problem that they needed to deal with, and that happened for probably about, my first loss was 10 years ago, and it's only in the last 3 years I've got the proper support that I need to sort of deal with the issues that came up. So the Pinks and Blues came about is because I didn't feel I had anywhere to go. I didn't have anybody who understood what I was going through. And so I worked closely with Heartlands and Birmingham Women's to provide 2 groups there, and I also offer one-to-one support to anybody who approaches the service at either face-to-face, over the telephone, through emails and Skype. And I was really privileged to meet Jill, and as she said, I won't promise anything, but if something comes up. And I hear that a lot. People say to me, oh, if we've got, if we can find some funding for you, we will. But it never comes around. So, I took that and as, well, it might not happen, but it'd be great if it did. So when I received the phone call to say, yes, you are part of this, I was really excited. So Jill asked me to pull together a group of people who'd experienced loss in the second trimester. So we're talking pre-24 weeks. So after 13 weeks up to 24 weeks. And these are the women who have to deliver their babies. They see their babies, they can hold their babies, but their babies don't exist. And that adds to a lot of difficulties in coming to terms with that. If we'd have gone another few weeks, we'd have got a certificate to say that our baby existed. If I'd have been in another hospital, they might have done more to make sure that I got to that 24 weeks. And so you're constantly having all these things thrown at you while you're trying to understand what you've been through. And as I said earlier, my pet peeve is incompetent cervix, because that's what I kept getting called. In all of my care, oh, you're the one with the incompetent cervix. I felt pretty shit anyway because of my experiences, so I didn't need anybody else telling me I was incompetent and that my cervix was, because I wasn't feeling big enough as a failure as it is. So as you can see, this is the graphic that came out of the workshop, and it was, I don't think we could have planned it to be what it was. Oh, I've gone off. No, I'm here. We couldn't have planned the session, and we didn't really go in with any sort of agenda. We just wanted to hear the experiences of those who've been through second trimester loss. And language was just such a huge thing. On my notes, I'd also seen spontaneous abortion. To me, abortion was something very different to me losing my baby. Another woman had therapeutic abortion put on her notes, and termination was also put, and that's where somebody had to make that really, really unbelievably hard decision. She wanted her baby so much, but the baby wasn't going to live, and she had to make that decision to terminate. And to have that written on your notes when it's not what society sees as termination or abortion is really difficult. Nobody had an experience that showed really good practice. Everybody had elements that were really, really poor care, and that really then impacted on their mental health. So everybody in the group was still struggling with the issues of their losses because people didn't listen to them, because people shut them up when they were saying, I think something's wrong, can you see me? And they wouldn't. So one of the big things as well that came out of it was the fact of going back to work and having to deal with everything going back to work. If you get to 24 weeks, you still get your full maternity leave, and you have that time where you don't have to deal with your work, you don't have to be explaining every fortnight why you're not back at work, and you're not being told constantly that you're letting the department down, and because you're not there, everybody's under such extreme pressure. And that's what we actually experience when we have to return to work, or if we take some time away from work. And that was consistent across the group. The whole support emotionally was evident that nobody had adequate support. It doesn't exist. Charities pick up elements of it, but there isn't anything that gives that long-term support to actually understand what you've been through. As I said, I've had 3 losses in the second trimester, and I nearly died at each one of those, and one of my first experiences as well. And trying to come to terms with having lost your baby, what you've gone through physically, but what wasn't even acknowledged was my husband. My husband was left in the room with our baby. I'd had a massive hemorrhage. I was rushed off to theatre after delivering Evan, and Evan was in the cot, and they'd left my husband in the room with the baby. Nobody checked on him for over 30 minutes, and he was just left there. And so we need to think about what's happening for the partners as well, in that we can see that they've not only lost their baby, they're potentially seeing their partners about to die, and they're not sure what's going on because everybody's just rushed off. So it's a really, really powerful workshop. We've used a lot of it as we've gone round doing the different workshops, and I still think there's a long way to go around second trimester loss. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And incredibly powerful. I think that small workshop, there were only, was it 7 of us in Birmingham? And we planned to meet and chat for maximum of 3 hours, including time for people to go out, have a bit of time. We were there for 4 hours and nobody left the room. It was just the most incredibly intense and moving session. And some of those people had never ever talked to someone else who lost a baby at the same kind of stage of pregnancy. And within the Nobody's Patient project, that's just one of the 3 strands.